Content warning, adult themes. Happy Valley, a deep dive into structure. Spoiler alert!
In Sally Wainwright's Happy Valley, we can take it for granted that the protagonist is Catherine Kaywood. Okay, Sarah Lancashire's character. And the antagonist is Tommy Lee Royce, the character played by James Norton. And this protagonist-antagonist dynamic happens over 3 seasons. It's a trilogy. Now, let's think about season 1, because I've been analysing the structure, and it seems that the episodes are written in 5 acts. And episode 1 is structured so that the act breaks don't follow either Catherine Kaywood or Tommy Lee Royce. They follow the character of Kevin, who is the reason, the cause, the instigator, the character who causes the inciting incident in episode 1, and which plays out through the whole season. So, this character is Kevin, played by Steve Pemberton. But is he the protagonist of the season, or is he the antagonist? Now, this character, Kevin, also has antagonists. So we have Ashley, played by Joe Armstrong, and also Lewis, played by Adam Long. So these are a trio of antagonists of Kevin. So Kevin is also an antagonist. He's an antagonist of Catherine, but he also has his own antagonists, Lewis, Ashley, and Tommy Lee Royce. The structure is quite complex, and it's also kind of debatable whether Kevin is the season protagonist or the season antagonist. He's antagonist to Catherine, but he's also protagonist because the structure of episode 1 follows his journey. Let's have a look.
Let's look at the structure of episode 1 and see how writer Sally Wainwright weaves the 4 story threads together. So, there are 4 story threads. I've labelled these as A story trilogy, which is Catherine and Ryan, her son, v. Tommy Lee Royce. Then we have A story for the season, the kidnapping of Anne. And B story, Catherine's personal life, her ex-husband Richard and her sister Claire, and her son Daniel, that's Claire's son Daniel. And C story, which is police protocol, drugs and corruption. So as I was mentioning just now, the end of each act is a turning point instigated by the actions of Kevin. So we can see the final shot of the first act also reveals the trilogy antagonist, Tommy Lee Royce. So at 1 we can see we start off with the C story, police protocol, and then we have the season story, which is about Kevin. Kevin asks his boss to give him a pay rise. Then we're into 3 scenes related to the trilogy about Tommy Lee Royce. Back to the season A story, Kevin. Trilogy A story. Then we got the B story, which is Catherine's personal life. Back to the A story for the season, A story trilogy, A story season, A story trilogy. And then we come to the end of the first act and we have 3 scenes following Kevin as he instigates this kidnapping of Anne. But right at the end, the final shot is revealing Tommy Lee Royce at the end of Act 1. So, Act 2, it opens with the A story for the season. And then we have the first act in red is related to the trilogy, the A story trilogy, Catherine and Ryan. Then we have 2 scenes relating to the A story for the season, 2 scenes of police protocol, and the story about drugs and the problem with drugs in the town where Catherine works. And then Kevin realizes he's made a mistake, finishing Act 2 on Kevin's realization. Act 3. So we open with 4 scenes. Starts at 32 minutes, ends at 39 minutes. So this is the central scene of the this is the central scene of the episode, Act 3. So we've got 7 minutes, basically, of scenes relating to the trilogy story. So Catherine waits for Ryan. Catherine opens up about Lee Royce's sexual assault of her daughter. Catherine calls Richard and arranges to meet. That could be Catherine's personal life. But she wants to meet him because she wants to express her hatred of Tommy Lee Royce to Richard, her ex-husband. So those 4 scenes, the opening 7 minutes of the central act are relating to the trilogy dynamic between Catherine and Tommy Lee Royce. And then the next 3 scenes, only 2 minutes, 39 minutes, 21 to 41 minutes and 08. So less than 2 minutes. It's Kevin at home in bed with his wife. Kevin wants to call off the kidnapping. And then Ashley rejects Kevin's idea. So that's the central act. What do I say here? So Act 3, the central act of the episode, begins with A story trilogy telling us the reason for this protagonist-antagonist battle. An immensely powerful scene where Catherine tells Ryan's teacher the entire backstory of her daughter, Becky, Lee Royce's violent assault and Becky's consequent suicide. We might call this the midpoint of the episode. The following scene takes us to Catherine arranging to meet ex-husband Richard. I've included this as A story trilogy as opposed to B story family because it leads up to Catherine's expression to Richard of her absolute hatred of Tommy Lee Royce. The next 3 scenes are dedicated to A story season. So we're into Act 4 now. Act 4 is completely dedicated to the season A story, not the trilogy, not the dynamic between Catherine and Tommy Lee Royce. Act 4 is all about the kidnapping of Anne, which is the season story, season 1, not the trilogy story. And the final scene then is Catherine jots down Kevin's registration plate. So again, it's on Kevin. The final scene of Act 4. Act 4 is completely dedicated to A story season. And Act 5, then we have the first, so 44:56 until 51:48, that's 6 minutes, dedicated to the season A story. Then we've got a little how many minutes is that? Almost just over 1 minute, 51:48 to 52:55, relating to drugs and police protocol. Now, this isn't a story about drugs, but this is painting the picture of what's happening in this town. And it's why it's called Happy Valley, right? Because of all the drugs going through. So we got that 1 minute, just over 1 minute scene in the middle of Act 5. So this is dedicated to the C story, which is about drugs and police protocol. Then we've got one scene, 52:55 to 54:12. So it's just over a minute, about a minute and 17 seconds. Catherine spots Lee Royce and gets out, but he's gone. A story trilogy. And then from 54:12 down to 57:44. So it's about 3.5 minutes. We're back to the A story for this season. The kidnapping of Anne. Following Kevin, the final scene, Catherine runs plate from scene 37 and gets Kevin's name. End of season 1, sorry. End of episode 1. So let's just read this. Scenes 38, 39, 40 focus on A story season. Scene 41 refers to police protocol, as Catherine tells an amusing story to Kirsty about drugs. She spots Tommy Lee Royce midway through the final act. The final 4 scenes of Act 5 all represent the season A story. And there we have Ashley, Joe Armstrong, Kevin, Steve Pemberton, and Lewis Adam Long. I hope this has been helpful.
Screenwrite.org. Learning to write for the screen.